I used to work at a coffee shop, and during my time as a barista, I came across many characters. I had a lot of customers who tested me, and in doing so, they helped me learn a lot about myself. Something that these customers evoked inside of me was the exploration of my own authenticity in comparison to the facade that I was putting on for them. I was younger, and I wasn't fully confident in setting boundaries with others, especially in a workplace. I was confused on how to show up because I wanted to be welcoming and be a good employee, but I didn't know to what limits. So, essentially, I let people walk all over me so that I could keep up an image as a palatable, friendly, and overly accommodating worker. To be honest, I did all of that because I thought it would help me get that tip money. But it turns out that I just had a limiting belief around the idea that I had to reject myself and be someone else in order to make money. Because I was such a noodle, and I say this with compassion, I was totally a noodle. I became an energetic match for people that were happy to push my buttons and to push me at my edge. I attracted a range of people, from creepy old men who would be completely inappropriate with me, who totally wanted my goodies, and no, I'm not talking about pastries here, okay? To grown adults who would treat me like their therapist and spend hours just talking to me, using me as their venting system. All because I thought it would be too rude to say no. I thought it would be too rude to lay down some boundaries. And so, despite my inner dialogue of being frustrated and angry and annoyed and aggravated at all these people, you know what they all called me? A nice girl.
Hello, my name is Mika. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So, today I wanted to talk about the topic of being authentic versus being nice because in my lifetime so far, I have had a lot of lessons regarding this subject. So, to me, authenticity means being able to connect to your unique divine essence and to be able to radiate that from within and outwardly. I believe that part of our work here on earth is to explore our own authenticity because it is something that's so special. And I do find that there are a lot of challenges in being able to do so. There are so many distractions, programs, and kind of just structures that are in place that make it difficult for us to silence everything else and really remember who we are at our core. One of the structures that can make it difficult for us to connect to our authenticity is our need for belonging. When we were babies, we relied on our ability to belong in order for our needs to be met. Because if we were rejected by our caretakers, then we wouldn't get the resources that we needed to survive. We wouldn't get nourishment or protection, and we would die. And so instilled deep in us is this need to belong and this fear of not belonging. So, because we learn the importance of belonging from a really young age, it can be difficult sometimes to weave ourselves out of, that structure. Especially as adults, our situations are different now, but to our core, we can still feel that primal need for belonging. And so it can be difficult for some people, including myself, to put ourselves in situations that can jeopardize that sense of belonging. So instead of doing that, we learn to reject parts of ourselves, reject our authenticity in order to continue to fit in and in order to continue to belong so that we can remain safe. So, personally, I have played the role of being a people pleaser many times in my life because it felt like the safest bet in being able to continue to fit in and make everyone happy at the expense of myself. And I felt like this was the safer option compared to risking rocking the boat and not belonging. And asserting boundaries hasn't always been something that has felt like a safe practice for me throughout my life, at least in my younger years and coming up into adulthood. And so it's something that I've definitely had to learn a lot about and learn a lot and grow around. And I'm still continuing to do that. Something that I've learned over time is that true compassion and true niceness comes from honoring yourself. And by listening to yourself, you create an opportunity for not only yourself to learn lessons around, boundaries and being authentic to yourself. But you also give the other people involved, an opportunity to learn their own lessons around the subject as well in their own individual way. I do think that it's easy for us to begin to tell a story around being too nice to people because it gives us permission to avoid what role we're actually playing in our dynamics. When we decide to remain stuck in the story of being too nice to people, we can allow ourselves to take on the role of being victimized and put the role on the other person for being the bad guy. And when we do that, we can release our own responsibility in seeing how we're contributing to this story. It seems that we don't feel the need to take responsibility if we have someone else to blame. I've had many conversations with people, and I've even hosted these conversations myself, where we spend a long time just kind of venting about how we feel taken advantage of because we're too nice. But it always makes me pause and question, who are we being too nice to? Definitely not ourselves, because we are throwing ourselves to the side and putting other people's needs ahead of our own. And not even to the person that we're being too nice to, because we've just spent the last 30 minutes angry at them or talking shit about them or feeling like, questioning our relationship and friendship. So it really brings up the question, who is it serving? I think that this gives us a really good opportunity to kind of look beneath the stories that we're telling around being too nice, and it gives us an opportunity to shine a light on what's really going on underneath. It's a great opportunity for us to take some time and be with ourselves and to soften and heal. And it gives us the opportunity as well to ask ourselves a few questions like, why is it difficult for me to assert boundaries? Where does this come from? Is this challenge authentic to me? What parts of myself are hurting right now? What are my needs, and where do I not feel safe? And what can I do in order to nurture myself, in order to feel more safe, so that asserting boundaries and being more authentic to myself can feel like a healthy and supportive process? I mean, these are just a few questions or prompts that have really helped me come back to myself. And, it's just a really wonderful way for us to help ourselves feel seen and to hold space for the parts in ourselves that need more nurturing and need more love. I think it's a very beautiful thing to find yourself again. And sometimes we are faced with challenges that stretch us, only to allow us to come back to ourselves. So now I'm going to share just a couple of things that have helped me a lot in my journey of learning to prioritize being authentic to being nice. The first thing that I like to do is clear my field and to clear other people's energy out of my space. And if you're a sensitive individual, it's easy to pick up other people's energy and invite it into your aura, and that's not where it belongs. I call this move the hamster because it reminds me of hamsters when they groom themselves. It's like they're completely scrubbing their body, and it's almost like a spiritual, energetic sponge bath. And so, what I like to do is just envision wiping my body and clearing out other people's energy from my space, exactly as it sounds. I usually do this in the mornings and evenings, more through visualization and energy work, but the physical process of it really helps seal the deal, and I encourage you to try it. Your body will feel a lot lighter, hopefully, because it does for me. Once my aura is cleared from all that gunk, the next thing that I like to do, which is probably one of the most important things that I find to do, is calling my energy back. By calling my energy back, I invite myself to step back into my power and remind myself of who I am at my core. This connects me to my authenticity, and in this space, I'm allowed to remember what my values are, what I appreciate, what I want more of, and what I'm available for energetically. This move that I'm doing right here is called Bringing Down the Heavens, and it's an exercise from Qigong that invites universal energies through your crown in order to replenish your system. One thing to be mindful of is sometimes when people are told a boundary and they don't like it, they will react by throwing shade and energy at you. And so the more
familiar you are with your own energy, the more easily you are able to recognize that other people's tactics of manipulation through shame and guilt and anger to try and get you to fold and cave in, it's all projections, baby. You know, and it's not yours, and you know this because you know yourself. Something that has helped me a lot is practicing saying no. And by doing this, I help my nervous system prepare for moments that may be awkward and uncomfortable, but are necessary. So I will really just take myself to a mirror and run through many different practice scenarios in order for me to be comfortable with asserting my boundaries and saying no. I feel like the more that I've done this and prepared myself, the less nervous and anxious and jittery I might feel in the moment. It's also good practice to learn to say no before you've reached your boiling point, so asserting your boundaries doesn't come out like an outburst. Something that I always like to keep in mind is to be gentle with myself and to remind myself that growth doesn't happen overnight. And so it's okay if it feels uncomfortable at first, or it's okay if it takes a little bit of practice in order to implement these things that help us become more of ourselves. You know, if we've spent so long not doing that, it makes a lot of sense that it would also take a decent amount of time to find your way back home. I remember that I used to feel so guilty and ashamed for not standing up for myself at times, but that really doesn't contribute to my own healing process. The discomfort that I've experienced from not standing up for myself is a lesson enough to teach me that I desire something different. And so, with that knowledge, it gives me the encouragement to take steps in a direction that feels aligned for me. Filling my own cup is a crucial step for me to be able to give from overflow instead of obligation. And that's where I find that true niceness and true generosity comes from, is from a place of wanting to and desire rather than feeling like I have to. And first, I have to realize that I must give to myself what I wish to give to others. Before I sign off, I do want to share one last tangent, and that is that over time I've come to realize that sometimes people will project their idea of who they think you are onto you, and they will expect you to uphold that image. But in my journey of learning to be more authentic, I've come to another understanding, which is that I am not interested in jeopardizing my own authenticity in order to fit into someone else's made up version of me. Instead of trying to mold myself and fit myself into a version of someone else's definition of nice, I would much rather use my energy to radiate my own light and trust that my own light will attract people who are meant for me because they see my authenticity and not because I'm wearing a mask. By being clear about what's a no for me also frees up space for me to be able to see what I am available for. And that is a beautiful thing. Thank you so much for joining me for this video, and I hope to see you again.